All right, so think about this. Every single time you check the weather on your phone, you order some food, or you log into an app using, say, your Google account, you're tapping into this powerful, invisible force that just works in the background. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see what the magic is all about.
I mean, it's a pretty basic question when you think about it, right? How does your Uber or Lyft app know your location using Google Maps? How does an app like Expedia or Kayak pull flight info from a dozen different airlines all at once? They don't have some secret magical connection. Nope, they have something way more practical. And that something is called an API, which stands for Application Programming Interface. The textbook definition says it's a set of rules. Yeah, I know, sounds a little dry, doesn't it? So let's forget the jargon for a second and think about it in a way that's going to make a whole lot more sense. This right here is the absolute best way to understand APIs, and we're going to stick with this idea. Imagine you're in a restaurant. You want to order some food. You don't just get up and walk into the kitchen to start cooking, do you? Of course not. You need a middleman, a go-between. So let's break it down. In this story, you are the app. You look at the menu of available options, and you decide what you want. You give that order to the waiter, and that waiter, that's the API. The waiter takes your very specific request back to the kitchen, which is the server, where all the info and resources are. A little while later, the waiter comes back with exactly what you asked for. That's your data. It's simple, it's structured, and it's super efficient. Okay, but here's the thing. Just like you've got different kinds of waiters, the super formal one at a fancy restaurant versus the fast-moving one at a diner, there are different types of APIs for different kinds of jobs. Each one is a specialist. And what's awesome is that our waiter analogy just keeps working. You can think of a REST API as your classic, flexible diner waiter. It's the most common, and it can handle pretty much anything you throw at it. SOAP, on the other hand, is that formal white glove waiter with a very strict set of rules, perfect for high-stakes places like a bank. Then there's GraphQL. This is the incredibly efficient waiter who lets you say, I want exactly this and only this. And gRPC, that's the lightning-fast waiter, just zipping between the different stations in a crazy busy kitchen, built for nothing but pure speed. So let's start with the king of the hill, REST. This is the absolute workhorse of the modern web. It's flexible, it's pretty easy to understand, and it's basically the default standard for most public web services. We're talking about giants like Google, Facebook, Amazon. They all rely heavily on REST. When you hear someone just say API, chances are they're thinking of REST. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got our super formal waiter, SOAP. It's a bit older and way stricter than REST. It has all these built-in rules for intense security and reliability, which makes it absolutely essential for industries where you just can't afford a mistake. That's why you'll find it powering transactions at places like PayPal, inside major banking systems, and even in government applications. Next up is GraphQL, our precision waiter. Its superpower is efficiency. Instead of getting a fixed plate of data like you often do with REST, GraphQL lets you tell the waiter, hey, I want the burger, but hold the lettuce and give me extra pickles. You ask for exactly what you need and you get nothing more. This is a game changer for mobile apps where every bit of data counts. And it's no surprise that it was actually invented by Facebook to handle their complex newsfeed. And finally, we have the speed demons. First, WebSockets. These create a constant two-way connection. It's like leaving an open phone line to the kitchen, perfect for real-time chat apps like Slack or livestock trading platforms. And then there's gRPC. Developed by Google, gRPC is all about pure raw speed for internal communication. It helps thousands of tiny little services, what we call microservices, talk to each other instantly inside a big application. Okay, so we've met the whole crew of waiters. But how do big companies actually use them out in the wild? Well, here's the secret. They almost never just pick one. They build a whole team of specialists. Netflix is the perfect example of this. For the front end, that's the part you actually see and interact with on your TV or your phone, they use GraphQL. It's perfect for grabbing exactly the show titles and images needed for your specific screen. But behind the scenes, in the back end, where thousands of little services are constantly talking to each other to handle stuff like your billing, your recommendations, that's where they use the super fast gRPC. Two different jobs, two different tools. And this multi-API strategy is everywhere you look. GitHub actually offers both REST and GraphQL APIs to give developers a choice. Google, of course, is a massive user of REST for its public services, while using its own creation, gRPC, for all its internal stuff. Even old-school banks are now building modern REST APIs right alongside their trusted, secure SOAP systems.
It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
So, after hearing all that, you might be wondering, okay, this is cool, but if I wanted to actually learn one of these, where would I even begin? That's a great question. Let's make this practical.
Honestly, it really just depends on your goal. If you're just starting out as a web developer, you have to master REST. It is the foundation. If you're passionate about building those slick, modern apps for the web or your phone, then GraphQL is your best friend. For anyone fascinated by the deep, back-end systems that make huge companies run, you should look into gRPC. And hey, if you're aiming for a career in finance or big enterprise tech, knowing the basics of SOAP is still surprisingly valuable.
Look, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. APIs aren't just some technical detail for programmers. They are, quite literally, the language of the modern internet. They're the rules of engagement that allow totally different pieces of software, built by different teams in different parts of the world, to work together like they were made for each other. If you understand APIs, you understand how our digital world is actually built.
So yeah, they're the invisible messengers, the tireless waiters, these threads that connect pretty much everything you do online. And now that you can see them, you can start to imagine all the new connections that are possible. So the only question left is, what will you build?